Okay, once you have Java, actually the JDK and the JRE installed, then let's use them. Our first application, let me back up. So where we're heading for this is we want to use something called an IDE, which is an an interactive development environment. And so that's going to be our best way to write code because it has so many tools to help us. But first, we want to go from actually just using the command line and see that we don't even need an IDE. All we need is a text tool like Notepad or Notepad++. I'm on Mac, which has neither Notepad or Notepad++, but the Mac has something called VI and VIM. And that's a text editor for, actually it's on Linux as well as Mac. So that's what I'm going to use, but you would use Notepad or Notepad++. Okay? So I'm going to show you how to do this using, like I said, Vim. And so I'm going to create a file using Vim. And you'll be on Notepad++ if you're on Windows or Notepad, so it will not look like this, but you will save it, so you'll create a new document and save it, not as a text type document, but as all other. So at the very top, you'll see an all other listing, save as, use that one. Okay, so I'm using Vim, hello, world, dot, Java, Java, and that has to be that way, okay? So we'll talk about the details of why things are named what they are going forward. But for now, just know that all your source code, all the code that you write to be compiled will be in a .java file. When it's compiled, it will end up in a .class file, .class file. And we'll see that here in just a moment. So I'm going to create this, and you'll notice I'm at an edit. It looks a little bit more like an editor now, and so I'm going to write some code. So to do so, I had to enter an I for insert, but you won't have to do that if you're on Windows. So public class, and we're going to call this the same exact name as the file, and that's required. HELLO, capital WORLD. It must match not only the exact text, but also the case of the file. All right, hit enter a open curly brace, and then a close curly brace, and that defines the scope of this source code in this file. We'll talk about what public and class means at a later date. Has to do with objects and object-oriented programming, but we're ways from getting there yet. So now I just want to put something in the body of this scope of this class, and that's going to be public static void main. And then inside this open parentheses, string, capital S, open square brace, close square brace, args, ARGS, close parentheses, and then open curly brace and close curly brace for that. And so what this main is in Java, it means something very special. And this is a typical function or method, as it's called in Java. But this is a very special method. This is the entry point for an application in Java. As it turns out, it's also the entry point for an application in C++ and some other languages like C and so forth. But in Java, so we have to have that main in order to execute this and make it run. So the entry point for this is main. The parameter, which is inside of this open and close parentheses, is an array of strings called args, or arguments, ARGS. For now, just take that for face value You don't understand it, you can't understand it yet. We're not to arrays. We have no idea what a parameter is yet. But that's what those are in case you're curious. The name of the method is main. Like I said, that means something very special for the Java compiler. Void, we won't worry about that until we get to methods, but that means it returns nothing. Static means there's only one copy, and public means it's available to whoever executes this program. Okay, we'll get to all of that later. Right now, just take this all for granted, type it in exactly, and let's just make something work. So there are a series of libraries, many libraries in Java, and one of them that we want to access quite often is called system, S-Y-S-T-E-M, dot, and the dot means something very special we'll talk about later, but that's a way to access contents of that library. And in this case, we have a system.out, dot, so out is another sub-library within that system, and then there's a method in there called print, LN, or print line. Okay, we'll use this and you'll get used to this a whole bunch. Inside of that, I want a string. A way a string is defined in Java is with a double quotes. So this is a string literal. Literal means it's literally a string, and I know that because it's defined within double quotes. So I have a double quotes, close paren, and then a semicolon to end that particular line of code. And we'll talk all about this later. We just want to get something to work. Inside of those double quotes, let's put a message that we can output to the console window or the terminal window. So I'm just going to put the old standard hello world. All right. And there we go. So once again, we have a class named, including case, exactly the same name as the file that it's saved as. Within that scope of that class, I have another embedded scope that's the main method. This main method also has its own scope. Okay, the scope meaning what it knows about. So the class knows about this method. The method knows about the print line method that's contained within the out library, contained within the system library. Okay, I know that's a lot, that's a mouthful, but just take it for granted now and let's make this work. We want to compile this and run it. So first, for me, I have to save it, okay? And that's a W or write for me. For you, you're on Windows probably, and so that's going to be just a save as, and you select all programs or all types. And then in the where you save it, you can save it to the desktop. That would be the most convenient right now. But you can put it anywhere you like to in your file system, as long as you can find it. And then you want to save it as hello world, capital W, dot Java, dot J-A-V-A. Okay? So I wrote that out. And now I want to exit this application. And I want to find it. So if I do a listing, ls, so you'll have to go to your command line now. If you're on Windows, you'll go to the Start button down at the bottom left, and then type in CMD, just like we did last time. And then you'll have to navigate to wherever you saved it. Okay? The way you can find it on Windows is type a dir for directory and hit enter. That won't work on Mac. But that will show you what's contained within that location where you're at. I'll explain. In Mac, ls is a listing, means the same thing as dir in Windows. So I hit ls and enter, and you'll see it shows me all of those files that's in that location. Okay? So I look around and see if I can see the hello world, and sure enough, you'll see hello world.java right there. So that's where I saved it. So I'm in the right location. If you do not see your file, you have to find out where it is. Okay, so let's say I was in a directory. I put it into another location that I can't find. Let's say the desktop. okay, then you'll have to change directory to the desktop in order to find it. Now, mine has a desktop on it, but that's not where I save mine, but I'm going to go ahead and change directory to that desktop just to show you how to do it. So CD is change directory, space, desktop. Hit enter, and now when I do a listing, there's nothing on my desktop, but you might see yours if you saved it to your desktop. Okay, so I'm going to go back to where mine is. Okay, to do that, I do a change directory, and then 2 dots will take me backwards 1 level. And then I do a listing, and there it is. Now to compile it, I do Java C space hello world dot Java. Okay, Java C hello world dot Java, and I hit enter. Okay, now it works a while and it comes back with no message. That's what you want. That means there's not a mistake in your source code. If you came back with an error, then that means you have a bug or a command error that's in your source code. So how do I find it? Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go back to my Vim and go in, and I'm going to create a mistake somewhere in here. So I'm going to misspell hello world. I'm going to change the capital W to a small w. Okay, then I'm going to save that, get out of it, recompile, and you'll see now it has a problem, an error. So it says, should be declared in a file named hello world.java. So it gave me a clue. It says this file name is not named what it expected to be found inside of the hello world with a capital W .java. It found a class called hello world small w. Those have to match exactly. So I'll go back into it. I'll go change that W to a capital W. Save that. Recompile it. Now to run it, Java, hello world, you do not put .java or .class behind it. Before I run that, let me back up, do a listing, and now you'll see there is a hello world.class. That's the compiled file. That's the bytecode that this is going to run. Okay, so down here, Java space hello world, enter, and you'll see it executed it and output the hello world exclamation point. You can experiment with this and put several print lines in it, output several things. You can output spaces and tabs and so forth, and just experiment with this to see and to learn how to use it a little bit. From here forward, though, after your first little project, you'll be using Eclipse, and that's what I'll go into in the next video.